peoples, welcome back to the Monday edition of Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Ann, Disembodied Hands, Quiddy, Disembodied Beard John, and Turgeon with the resub for 36 months. That means we have to triple sub-anniversary, triple sub-anniversary, triple sub-anniversary, happy triple sub-anniversary. There you are. Long time since we've done one of those. Playtest of Daggerheart, yeah, cool, Laura. Yeah, grill! Woo! Awesome. We're doing that tonight. We're grilling some pollo asado chicken and doing some fajitas, chicken fajitas. For sure. Because David made too much guacamole last night for our hamburgers. So we had to do something to use up extra guacamole. There we go. Sorry. Too many buttons, too little brain cells this morning, apparently. When do you take your allergy pill? I'm all stuffy. You spent it birding. Good. Ugh. Rising and falling barometric pressure and humidity. Making my sinuses all crazy. I'm kind of sad that my bird feeder, my stripy head sparrows, are definitely migratory, and they all left. Yeah, well, they do for me now, Shadow Raven. They didn't when I was on keto. I could have all sorts of guacamole on keto, and I wanted it because it was one of the things that would let me get my fat percentage up to what I needed it to be. But now that I'm trying to do this high protein balanced diet, it is definitely, the problem is too many calories. So I'm trying to fine tune the diet now. Like, the easy weight loss part of the diet, or should say the easy inches loss part of the diet is over. So now I have to, there's always that honeymoon period where you start a new diet and you get like, like all these cool effects, and you're just like, yes, because you made a change, and your body's like, oh my gosh, and all that kind of thing. And then your body's like, I can adapt. And I'm like, no, it's like that. So now I'm in the part of the diet where I actually have to track what I eat, and I actually have to pay attention to calories and try to find the fine tune where I still lose inches. But I'm still eating enough that I'm not hungry. So it's on that balancing act right now. Wow, that's a lot, Thormil. Oh, you're half blind. That's all right, Turgeon. You don't have to really see. You can just listen. Yeah, pretty much. So that's all right. I mean, the problem is I had to explain this to somebody in my CrossFit class, one of my CrossFit friends, Stephanie. She's about to go back to France with her family. She's been in the US with her family for several years, and it was only supposed to be 6 months when they first came over. So she's excited because they're finally moving back to France, but I'm sad because I lose one of my CrossFit friends. But she's like, I told her I got a new pair of leggings, but she's like, well, why aren't you wearing them? And I'm like, because I was the fat girl when I was growing up, and I'm still struggling with the fact that wearing leggings, in public is scary. And she was like, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like thinking, you have been the skinny French girl all your life. I didn't say it. I was just thinking it. It was a bad thinking too, because she's such a nice person. She's real sweet. But she's a runner, and she has that level of fitness that runners have. So it's like, but that's with the diet, I look better than I have in ages, but I'm still laboring under that misconception that I'm overweight, and I am slightly overweight, but I'm not crazy like I used to be overweight, It's hard to get past that mental, right? That mental set. I forget who I was talking to. It was a while ago, but they mentioned that you always have that idea of yourself, because if you spend a lot of years overweight, you always feel like you're overweight, even if you're not, right? Even when you're so much, look better and fitter than you've ever been, you have to find a way to flip your brain over. I feel weird in leggings. I think it's a Midwestern thing, actually. In the Midwest, my mother always looked at those people in leggings. And I'm like, but I'm going to be in an exercise class. If there is one suitable place for leggings, it is an exercise class, right? So this really doesn't make sense that I didn't want to wear my new leggings. And I like my new leggings. But yes, it's still, I'm still laboring under those brain things. Those brain things that get in your brain and just like do stuff. Crazy, crazy brain things. And they're subtle. They're very subtle about it. And sometimes you don't really know, like, why is my brain doing this, right? And it can take some serious, like, thinking about it. And it's usually so silly and elemental. Like last night, one of my favorite writing book authors put out a new book, and she's all about the Enneagram, whereas Becca's all about Clifton strengths, and Claire is all about the Enneagram, and she's very good at it. And she wrote a book pretty much for writers in the Enneagram. And I was like, oh, I'm like, So I'm looking at it, and it's like, my type, like, hates to feel like they're bad. Like, that's triggering right there. Like, bad or, like, corrupt or, I'm always trying to be the best person I can be. I'm always trying to, like, I follow the rules unless there's an obvious reason not to. There's, like, all this kind of thing. And so there's this fear in my head that the new book will be bad, right? And so that makes me kind of cringe away from writing it. And I had to stop and really analyze that. And I think a lot of us like go through that with creative stuff, right? We're afraid that our work is not as good as we want it to be. And then we're like, well, why should I even bother? Or I shouldn't show this to anybody. Or why should I finish this, right? So I suffer from it too. It's just that I really don't want to suffer from it anymore. And so I've been doing a lot of self-explanatory work trying to figure out, or self-exploratory work, trying to figure out why, what in my brain is working against me here, right? Enneagram, it's one of those personality tests, Pendrake, except really what it does is it's, one thing you guys should realize is that all of these personality tests are measuring different things. So, like, when people ask, like, what's the equivalent in Myers-Briggs of the Enneagram 1? There is no equivalent because they're not measuring the same thing. Enneagram is really a self-exploration tool. It, like, helps you understand what your basic, like, your core fear is and what you really want. So core fear and core desire are the two things in Enneagram. And from that, you can actually do some work and figure out why you're hamstringing yourself in your life, right? If you're willing to go deep and go crazy. Yeah, they're all different. Enneagram. Seriously has the spelling. Enneagram. Yep. But yeah, so there are 9 types. And what it is it's 9 types of thinking about and reacting to, I forget the 3 words, but there's like, it's a specific way that you interact with the world. And it's like, and although you may resonate with several of the Enneagrams, there's going to be one that is you. And the way to find that one is to look at the core fears of each Enneagram type, like the core fear, and ask yourself, like, which of those really scares the bejeebus out of you. So for me, it's being seen as being bad or not honest or like not straightforward. Like that's trigger. That's like big trigger right there. Or like not being like, yeah, like all that. Like, and even though I thought, well, maybe I'm a 9 or maybe I'm a 4, but when I read their fears, it's not nearly as triggering as like the fear of being seen as a bad person or being seen as dishonest or any, yuck. So yeah, so it's got some interesting, and it did let me like realize last night that the fear of the new book being bad or me being seen as a bad writer, because I had all the time in the world to work on East of the Sun and West of the Moon, and I got them in the end. They were so close to what I envisioned, but usually with books you don't get that. Like I'm going to be sad because I got my unicorn with my first 2 books. Like the story was exactly the story I wanted to tell when I finally put those books out. But books moving forward aren't going to have, 10 years each or whatever to sit there in my brain. Like they've got to move. The story's got to move. And I should be able to move it because I understand the world now. I understand my characters. I've made a lot of progress. But there's still that fear, right? There's that fear. Even though I know I can do it. I can put out a good book now in 6 months if I work hard. Still there's that fear. Yeah, right. Crowley with a 52-month resub. Thank you so much. It matters. All the subs matter. I tell the people this. Subs to Reaper matter. They help us keep getting paid. Subs to me matter. Subs to all of your streamers like really matter. Like I think the only time maybe I don't even think like I used to think that it didn't matter if the streamer had like a lot of followers. It's just your sub won't have as much impact, but it will still matter to that streamer. So it all matters. But yeah, so let me look up our reference pictures here. Oh, I also wanted to share with you guys some really cool stuff I learned from my book, the audiobook, that I'm still working on because I only listen to it every once in a while. So there's burnout, but apparently psychologists also have a thing called bore out. And it means that you've gotten so bored with the thing that you just can't motivate yourself to work on it. So burnout is just the exhaustion that you get from overwhelm. But bore out is the thing that you like have been working on for way too long. Maybe you haven't worked on it quickly enough. Maybe you started and it just doesn't have the impetus to carry you forward. So bore out is actually a word among psychologists. I thought that was hilarious. I'm willing to bet that right now in the chat there are plenty of people who have suffered from bore out with a miniature. James Gurney, where are you? Looking for my James Gurney. Not in that email. It's in the other email, Anne. More James Gurney. Oh, I don't really need that. Boom. I need to just, like, sort all of his stuff because, there we are. I just need to remember the title of it so I can search for it. There we are. All right. All right. Here we are. Yay. Okay, and we're working on this stage right here. And we're kind of combining it because I'm also sneaking in a bit more browns, which is what he's doing here. As he's reducing his blues a bit. But we'll really start hitting things with the brown once we've got all the black. And really we just need to now work on the black in a couple of areas. The front is mostly blacked. You're a better woman than me, Korniko. Yeah, sometimes if you have a certain type of personality, which many of us are, we're learners, like we like to learn new things, but the problem with being a learner is that it's easy for you to get bored. So if you realize that you have this personality type, this thing in your brain that where you just love to learn and you're always like kind of frittering around to different things, learning whatever takes you, a place you find is interesting, be aware that it's probably going to be to your benefit when you start a project to get that project done as quickly as you can. Because if it drags on, you really risk having bore out. And it's nothing wrong with the model, and it's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way your brain works. And you can train your brain to just, like, stick with it. Like, there are just some times in life that we have to finish the thing. We don't have choices. So sometimes I will just sit down and make myself finish the thing. Or you can use distractions, like I've said before. You can put on a podcast to distract your brain while you paint so that it's not sitting there. Really, you just want your brain to not be sitting there grousing about the fact that it's bored. So sitting down to listen to your podcast and just incidentally painting is one, or put on a show in the background that you really like, or something like that, right? Anything that'll distract your brain just enough. For some people, music will do it. Music will do it for me. I'll just sing along and think about the songs, and I won't think about what I'm doing as much. Why isn't it flowering by now? I know. Yes, there's an actual term. Right, yeah. So if you have that brain thing, yeah. Right. But if you have that thing, Zachariah and Twisted Oma, that means that if you want to finish things, you gotta hard commit and get them done fast. Like, so don't let yourself meander around and look at other things, or don't like sit down for just 15 minutes a day. Like, give yourself a whole day on the weekend to work on the thing. Essentially it's key. What's key is while you are enthused about it, don't mess around thinking about it. Do it. Like, use that enthusiasm to give you that initiating energy that it takes to start the thing. And then, then you try to just work on it consistently so that you can finish it before you get bored. I hate to say it, that's totally the way it works, though. I've noticed that with myself. Yep, if you just do it, you get it done. Exactly. And if you don't, then it becomes like just a do, or maybe you come back to it, right? Yeah, and that's fighting me on this book right now because I've taken too long on this book. Because things have gotten in the way and I haven't gotten as many words done over the months as I really needed to. And so now I'm fighting that with this book. But I can still sit down. Once I sit down and get into the characters, then the writing will come. It's just like, I know that I didn't move fast enough on this book. I know I meandered around too much. And part of that was that I needed to think about it because it was a whole new story. But part of it was that I just had things interrupt me. Hey, Kodiak. Wow, it's sub day. Welcome, and thank you for the 26 months sub. Sweet. Yeah, happy subs. Oh, my sinuses. Sorry, guys. Ugh. Blah, blah, blah. Ugh. Very sniffly. Yeah. Yeah, Twisted Oma, yeah. I think what's key is, especially if you do dart from hobby to hobby, as I do as well, but what's key is to make a place where you can put that hobby away when you're not active in it. So some of us will keep it out because we think, well, if we keep it out, I'm going to work on it, but then we don't, right? And then next thing you know, it's been out for 3 months or 6 months or 3 years, sitting there, taking up space. So I think what's key that I've learned to do is if I'm not working on my knitting actively, like if like a week goes by and I'm not working on my knitting, I put my knitting away. I put it in its corner, in its bag and box that I have set aside for it, and I get it out of the way. If I'm not working on a project on my desk, I pack up that project and I put it away. I know that I'll come back to it if it's important to me, but I don't leave it lying around because then that's when the overwhelm can really hit you. Because if you've got a distractible brain, leaving those things around is like acting like little landmines. Every time you see them, your brain gets a little distracted, and that keeps you from actually working on the thing that you might be into right now. So I think it's very important when you've got a distracted brain and a brain that tends to flip from one thing to another to make an effort to put those things away when I'm probably not going to have time to work on this for at least a week. In a week, if you need to, you can get it out again. It isn't going to cost you that much time. But remove it from your area, get it out of your way because it's just going to sit there and keep distracting you. Anything can help to put away stuff. I mean, I have to put it in my closet out of sight. Right. But as long as you keep it out, it's going to nag at you. And it's also going to sometimes if you have a brain that likes to feel guilty and get down on yourself, it'll help your brain do that. It'll help it kind of yell at you. Oh, look at that, sitting there. You haven't worked on it for weeks. What's wrong with you? Right? That inner monologue can then just jump out and grab you. Whereas if you would have put that thing away, you'd be like, la, 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 la. Your brain wouldn't be able to seize on it, right? But yeah, pretty great when you put her away from a closet. She's not your hobby, though, Quindy. She's more than your hobby. I don't use clear containers. I use boxes, but that's because I like them to be mysteries when I go to open them up and recheck the miniatures. Oh, I forgot to tell David the plan to get rid of miniatures. I'll have to put it on my to-do list today to tell David the plan. All right. We need russet brown, ultramarine shadow, and lantern yellow. We're not going to work on our yellow. So we're good. So just ultramarine shadow and russet brown then. Let's mix up our black. She's a distraction, sure. Well, if you can't put it at the curb, put it away. That's funny, Zechariah. They knew it. They were putting dreams in your head. They're like, tell him to feed us. One of your cats is psychic. All right, so we're going to make our black. Black. 2 drops of the ultramarine shadow and 2 drops of the russet brown. Oh, all passed away. Funny. Yeah, I would say, just from what I've read with ADHD, everybody seems to express that a little bit different. I mean, it's just like everything, right? It's like some diets don't work for some people and they work for other people. Some ways of working work for some people. Sometimes a creative mess is great for some people, but it would drive somebody else insane. All different. Our brains are so different. We have consistencies, but we also have big differences in our quirks. I don't know, maybe. Maybe Ghost Kitty came to give you a toy. Or maybe it was stuck down inside your blankets and you just hadn't noticed it. Or maybe you have a ghost kitty. My dad said we had a ghost kitty when I was a kid. He made up stories about it. Its name was Pyewacket, after a ghost in an old movie. I was convinced that Pyewacket was a thing when I was, 4. So I'm going to mix up these, and the blue's going to take over a little bit more than the brown, even though the brown's got a lot of pigment. It's going to give me this great pseudo black color. It's a little bit bluer than it is brown, but that doesn't really matter. You just are looking for something that can serve as a saturated black. Yeah, I mean, the more I read about ADHD, the more I realize that it's like everything else in life. Everyone is different. Some things are going to work for some people, some things aren't going to work for them. It's not like, labels are never like one size fits all. So, but yeah, it's good to know that that'll work for some people with the clear containers. See, the thing with me is I want it to be completely out of my mind. I know where I keep my miniatures. I know I can find this stuff if I need to. But I want it to be out of my brain because it's otherwise it weighs on me. So it has to be like it doesn't exist for me. That's why I'm about to like get rid of some of this stuff. I'm excited about that, actually. But yeah, well, I haven't done a pare down since I moved. It's scary that I already have enough models. I feel like I need to pare down again. So I'm going to just mix up a little bit of this russet brown just in case I need something a little bit warmer like we did with the torch here. And we're going to jump in. I found out, Kerniko, that's a common grief thing. Because I did the same when my first cat died. Like, I would see her in the chair. Because she always she was like a dog. She would meet me at the door when I came home from work. But, alright. Let's see what we got to do here. So we need that black shade. First of all, we need to use the black to really block in dark shadows where they're going to exist. And then we need also that transition black where surfaces are moving from the yellow to the blue. Yeah, I just need to cleanse my environment. Like, the closet's great, but when my side of the closet is full, that's a bad sign. Or I should say, when my side of the closet is full and I haven't been painting very quickly, which is usually almost always. I'm going to use the black to bring in these details here on the shield, just between the boards. Yeah. I mean, I have my dogs crop up in my dreams. Kiri was in my dream 2 days ago. So the other thing I found out from my book, which is actually actionable. This is the Hidden Potential book, by the way. Actually explains something that I had wondered about for a long time, which was, I may have told this story before. So we're going to, first of all, I'll explain what we're going to do here. So we've got blue and yellow budding right up against each other. In that green space there, I want that shadow. So I want it to be, instead of having that transition green or in addition to it, like we've got this transition, but then we've got these dark shadows. And we've got the yellow, but then we've shadow before the blue. So we've got a shadow here. So I want to get those shadows on this sleeve. There's a little bit right here that you can see the black coming in, but we need to do it up here too. So that's what we'll do while we talk. But anyway, so I told you guys maybe a long time ago when I was first painting, when I was painting for eBay and I was trying to win my first painting competition online, Jennifer was entering. So it was a pretty difficult one. So I was working really hard on my Wolfen model. And, I just was having trouble, like, really making it, like, tight and focusing on all the details. And so what I did is I swapped to a smaller brush. Like, usually I was using about an 05 Reaper, which is a little bit smaller than the DaVinci I use now. And I shifted down to an 10 Reaper, which is more like, oh gosh, I want to say like a 00 Winsor Newton or a little bit smaller. So it was like about like 2/3 of the size of the previous brush, really, really quite small. And what happened is I became a better painter. I actually was able to focus and create like, focus better on the details and didn't miss areas and stuff like that. Like it taught me to do that. And so I finally, from this book, I found out why, or at least like that maybe not why it is, but and it has to do with that bore out thing, actually. What it has to do with is focused play, which is like focused learning, only better. So what happens is, with the bore out and everything, is that people focus on, you guys have all heard the 10,000 hours thing, right? Takes 10,000 hours of focused practice to get to be a master at something. That wasn't really how those people talked, but, So it turns out that is completely wrong. It is different for everyone, and you can shortcut that by adding more play into your practice. Like the 10,000 hours thing was like coined by like a study, but more studies that have been done on the subject have shown that there's actually quite a bit of difference in people as far as the number of hours they take to really consolidate something in their minds. And also that the focus practice thing, which is where you like really, really focus on like one thing, right? You're really deliberately trying to get better, right? It turns out that is actually not as effective because it can bore out. It can give you bore out, right? Sometimes drills and just straight practice can be boring. Like just working on your layering, maybe you get bored with it. Didn't really, and then you stop improving. The minute you get bored, you stop improving in general. So, never pin rake. Wow, that's a really like, that's an old study and people have talked about it forever. But then again, you hear about it more if you like are into self-improvement crap like I am. But so here's the thing: when you switch it up, when you introduce something differently or make it more fun, or switch up the challenge so that it's different, you learn better. You learn faster. So for me, when I did, and this is actually something they've done a study on, but when painters switch brush sizes or change some other aspect of their craft, they learn more. Like this is apparently actually been a thing because he specifically mentions switching brush sizes in the book, and I was like, this is why. Because deliberate practice will only take you so far, and what you risk doing is that perfectionist thing where you focus really hard on one small aspect of your craft, but you sacrifice the other aspects and you don't improve overall. You get good at one tiny thing, but you don't get good at the thing in general. And so when you switch up things, you make it more interesting, which means your brain is more engaged, which means you learn faster. So if you want to improve, don't beat your head against the wall trying to do one thing, one aspect of mini painting. Maybe switch up your tools or switch, if you switch, the same thing can happen if you switch palettes, I would imagine. Although there's a frustration aspect to that too, so I'm not so sure on that one. But I'm going to mix up some straight ultramarine because I do feel like I need to get a transition. Well, let me see. Yeah, I guess it's going to be more like NMM there. So I'm going to take some white. Yeah, or a larger brush. It depends on what you're on already. But this is key. Here's the key. It's not just switching and then working with that for a while. It turns out that if you switch things up like every 20 minutes or half an hour while you're painting, that's the biggest return. So because it keeps you from going autopilot, it keeps you actively engaged. It keeps you from getting bored. And because of that, it's actually a more effective tactic than just focusing on one thing. Now again, as we've just discussed, everybody is different and your mileage may vary. And in all these studies, there are no doubt people who didn't benefit from this, but the majority of people did. So I found that very interesting. What you should switch your brush size on, Kerniko, is when you're focusing on the parts of the dragon that need tight detail. In other words, the face. So if you're used to using a size 0, go down 1, right? When you're working in the eyes and mouth. It'd probably be a more benefit not on a dragon, so when you're painting other things, but in my opinion, just because dragons tend to be big enough, depending on which one it is, of course. Just mixing up some ultramarine shadow and some white. So I decided I wanted to be able to blend that edge a little bit better. But yeah, so these are all tactics that I'm sharing with you for those of you who are trying to get better. I highly recommend this book. Immensely highly recommend this book. Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, I think. So worth it. Oh, get back to me. Yeah, this one. The Science of Achieving Greater Things by Adam Grant. And it's a cool book on audio because he actually got, when he does interviews, he actually recorded the people talking about, the people do all their own voices. So, when he's interviewing people, he has them, most of them, he has them actually talking in the book. So, full cast. So yeah, just one technique. So we've got that dark shadow in there now. And see how that looks better than it did when we had just the blue. So we're going to go through and we're going to add these dark shadows. Kinda. It's like an educational documentary blue. Or, I mean, any one of these, self-helpery type education books are kind of that way. But, I mean, even when the author is doing the voices, but it's got actual, yes, it's more like a documentary in that the people are saying their own stuff, right? I see what you're saying. At first I found it a little off-putting, but then I realized I really liked it because then the people can put their own emphasis, right? Sometimes when an author is reading what somebody else said, they probably will put their own emphasis on it, and that may not be the emphasis on particular words that the original person would have put. So here we want to get more of a rounded feel. So I want to bring up this black a bit into the yellow to shape this area into more of a round like that. It's Monday the 13th, which I always think is worse than Friday the 13th because it's a Monday. Like, I don't understand why Friday the 13th is so bad. The end of the week is good. Hey, Dogfather. Yay. Yeah, lots of resubs today. 49 months. Impressive. Oh, cool. Through CNOT. Nice, Blue Snow. Yeah. CNOT's awesome. I love his tune selection. His sculpts are amazing. He inspired me to pick up some cosplay of my very own. I haven't used it for much because I haven't done a lot of scratch sculpts, but I did this griffin. The snowy griffin head. I need to get a little bit more in focus. Focus, focus, focus. There we go. So yeah, there's our griffin head. So I sculpted the base of that. Essentially, I made an armature out of cosplay and then did detailing with green. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he's so relaxing, right? He's not so chill. It's just relaxing to watch his stream. The way I learned to do stuff is I just kind of mucked around with little detail stuff on my minis, Blue Snow. So, like, I would try to sculpt just a little thing to be extra. Like, sometimes I would try to sculpt... I did some Space Wolves once upon a time, so I was sculpting wolf tails. That was one of my earliest things to learn. And then I learned to sculpt rocks, because I like rocks. Because you always could use some extra rocky scenery on your bases. So just starting with little simple things without a lot of detail, I think is key. Because it gives you some early successes, and you also learn to work with the putty, because every putty is different. But it's like any other thing. It's like, you can learn it. It'll take effort, but, you know, if you really are interested, then just jump in. Jump in and, like, maybe, I wonder if you asked CNOT if he would tell you, like, how he would recommend starting. He probably would say just jump in. Oh, tabletop terrain. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and that's some of the easier stuff to sculpt, in my opinion. Like, that's a pretty... That's a very doable entry point. Because terrain is nice because you can do a lot of stuff with just, like... You can do a lot of stuff with, like, foam, right? Using foam for the underpinning. But then you can sculpt stuff to add on to that, right? But then smaller terrain, like buildings, again, you're using a lot of, like, various materials like basswood and stuff, but you're also able to sculpt little bits of additional detail. All right, so we want to get black shadows in here. So I'm going to bring that in. Like so. Pretty much anything would be a good start. I mean, if you pick something, sometimes it depends on your brain. Like, some people will be motivated by sculpting something that's useful. And I know with knitting, that's me. Like, I want to actually knit something that I can use. I don't want to just knit something to knit something. Got to get some of this in here. There. And then we've got that little dagger. It's got a little bit. Now, this is all underneath the torch, so I need to look. And I think there's going to be pretty dark shadows under here, so let's just put those in. Yeah. Trees and ruins. Yeah, the ruins, those would be pretty simple. Nice, Hyper Bunny. I'm just going to really darken down all of this because it's all under the arm here. So there's going to be pretty dark shadows. And as I mentioned, just like Gurney does in this picture, one second. Bloop, bloop. So when he gets down to doing the finished piece, he is still bringing in some details, right? He's using that lighter blue to do some detailing here and there. Like he's leaving kind of like a brownish blue-gray in here. So he's definitely still like doing details in the shadows. And so we're going to be doing that on this guy for sure as we get there. But for the most part right now, everything in shadow is in shadow. Oh, Hyper. Anything. Hey, it's your first sculpt. Nobody's going to give you crap about it. Yeah, Green User's in the chat, Blue Snow. Green User's there. They're one of Reaper's sculptors. So Julie and Bob sculpt all sorts of stuff, including terrain. Bob does really cool styrene terrain. Has done a couple of pieces for Reaper. And didn't you guys do the terrain? Did you do the terrain for Dragons Don't Share? I don't remember. I thought you did. You did the dragon, Julie, but I know other sculptors did a lot of the other stuff, so I couldn't remember. So I'm going to leave a little bit of blue back here. My black is not as dark as I would like. Green Users right below you, Blue Snow, is Julie Guthrie and Bob Rodolfi. They've been sculpting miniatures for a very, very long time. They mostly work in green stuff, but I think they use other materials as needed. Bob did the terrain. Ah, okay. Yeah, so... Bob is really good at terrain. So we're just blocking out, and we're going to leave a little bit of blue coming in because I've got, there's going to be some reflected light, right, from the environment. So, especially on this metal here. The chainmail we'll just have to bring up later. So I want to bring down a lot of these areas. Essentially, we're keeping the blue. We still get that blue tone. We still get that, we get a little bit of it, but we're knocking it down a fair bit. Yeah, dog could be. I always thought about doing a sculpt on my dog, of one of my dogs. All right, I'm going to put a really hard black occlusion shadow back here. So I'm going to take my thick black and just slather it on the other side of that pouch because it's opposing the torch. So we want it down here. It's going to cast, because it's a big fat pouch, it's going to cast quite a shadow, and we want to capture that for sure. Okay, bye Blue Snow. It was nice to meet you. We're pretty chill here. Not as chill as CNOT. Nobody is as chill as CNOT. But we try. We try. So I'm just going to blend in this a little bit. So we can see that shadow now. We can see the weight of that bag as it's... Whereas before it was just kind of sitting there, now we get a sense of its mass and how much it's sitting up on top of that shield. This is what shadows do for us. Yeah, we'll be doing that. I'm just working around, but yeah, you're right, Crowley. I'm kind of switching back and forth. But yes, so let's do that. It'll be a very hard black edge. up here. And also on the edge of all these little rivets. That's more detail than we probably need right now. That's better. Yeah, for sure. Hyper. That's cool. I'm just gonna add in the shadow in the mouth of the bag there, make it a little bit more so, especially up near this edge, more black. Can stay light on the other parts. So I was going to do something on using the hair colors for my color workshop for my Patreon this month, but I decided to reverse and do something on warm and cool, on color mixing actually, warm and cool primaries. So that'll be fun. And I just start that today and work on it the rest of this week. And I should have my my $2 PDF up today as well. I have a lot to do today. Hey, Richard, we're doing good. All right, now I need that hard shadow here and underneath the bag. It's okay. The stream will be here. When your hand doesn't hurt, you can always go back and watch. Just gonna make this a little darker. Need to add a little bit more of my full strength black into this. Thinned black, because it's really not carrying as much as I want it to. Tonight at 6 p.m. Central. Oh, okay. Judges. Uh-oh. Well, I'm not one of them, so I cannot answer that question. So we'll get this shadow in here. That could be Val. Honestly, I would do it, I would worry less about getting it perfect, like with your layering, and just start working in some glazing if you haven't already. I was trying to get some really good layering the other day, and I just got frustrated with how long it takes, and I wet blended and glazed it to submission. My patience level has... I had all the patience in the world when I was first learning smooth blending, and I loved getting in the zone and spending hours on it. Now I get really impatient. because I know I can do it faster. Texas does count. I'm sure Texans all would agree with you that Texas is its own country. Just going to put a shadow around this. We'll bring up some underlight. We'll have a warm reflected highlight here, actually, because we've got some light bouncing off of that. Now, this is going to be a lot of dark. Hard shadow underneath this for sure, and then under everything else. We'll leave a little bit of blue. I think I'm just going to totally eclipse the blue here. It'll still show through a little bit because it was our underpainting. I'm going to bring it way down. I have no opinion on Texas seceding from the Union. That's how I knew I wasn't a real Texan. So we're darkening that down. I think I want to grab some brown and bring that in. Knock this down a little bit. Then you need to not use, then you either need to use Master Series full strength with no thinning val, because Master Series is not those other lines. So that's the main issue here. Master Series is not those other lines. It is intrinsically different from Vallejo and AK. Intrinsically. The bases are completely different chemically. Like, Vallejo is a cell paint. It's like something that is equivalent to a vinyl. They used to use vinyl. I don't know if they do now or if they've got a proprietary resin, but they're using a very high solids base with big particulates. And that's going to give you coverage, but it's not going to thin as well. So you got one or the other. So what you should do, if that's what you really want, is you should use Vallejo or AK as your base coat. And then when you start working with thinned paint, move to Master Series. Because if that's what you're having a problem with, if you really, really, really hate it, then go to a full coverage cover for the base. Go to a full coverage paint. And then you can mix Master Series into all those other paints. So you could even mix highlights by then adding Master Series or Chimera or whatever you want to do. But that's the problem, is that you're looking for a paint line that can do it all, and there isn't one. You can make Reaper cover by using it at or very near to full strength, you know, you can make Vallejo work transparently by thinning the Beljibus out of it. It'll just take you more effort for both of those, right? But no paint line is able to cover and yet get transparent layering without a lot of work. Like, that's the thing, right? Is certain resins will resist you on the transparency and certain resins will resist you on the coverage. That's just like physics right now. Until they figure out how to trick the universe. That's the way it works. Because it's actually the physics of the particle size that are blocking the light. But that particle size being so big means that it is going to fight you on transparency when you want to layer. So that's why I'm like, then switch lines. It never bothered me not to get like perfect opacity on my base coats. I was okay doing 2 layers. There are very few colors that I have to do more than 2, and usually I know those are transparent, and I go in knowing I need to add a little bit of white to them. Or another pigment that will help them cover. If I want to use that as my base. But yeah, it's... wanting MSP to act like those other paint lines is a lost cause because it is not those other paint lines. And that is its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. But I persist in believing that it is more of a strength than a weakness. There are enough copycat paint lines that all act the same out there. All right, really dark. There we are. And that seems just weird. Whenever you describe that, I question your paint. Because I never have that. I always have to add full drops. Like, if I go ultramarine, and I pop 4, and ultramarine is not a very opaque paint. So I have 4 drops of ultramarine shadow in here. And I have a damp brush without much water in it at all. And I put it in there. It's still really thick. It has a transparency to it because it's ultramarine. But, like, it's not, like, falling to pieces, right? Yeah, that's what I wondered, but I thought he was on a well palette. If you're on a wet palette, that's why. Don't use them. I would say MSP is not at its best on a wet palette. I even switch to other paint lines on a wet palette unless I'm going to be doing a lot of mixing and I use a very dry wet palette. But I thought you were on a well, Val. I don't remember. Right. See, but you could see, like, I just took a bunch of water and took this off because I didn't want it to dry. But that's a good example. I mean, this is about the right consistency of most Master Series, and it still was fine. Like, I mean, the issue is you don't want it that thick usually for a smooth base coat. That's why, you know, sometimes if you want that full coverage, like that one coat coverage, then you got to look at another line for a lot of it, or Master Series color. Like I said, if I added a bit of white to this ultramarine shadow, it would actually cover really well, and I wouldn't change the color all that much. And I just, like, that was a damp brush with a little bit of water in it, and it really didn't change that consistency. So I, like, are you using 4 drops? Like, there's a reason I have, like, a 4 or 5 drop start to most of my ratios. But if you are looking for that one coat smooth coverage, that's not what MSP is for. Like, I went against that because I don't like how those other paint lines lack adhesion. I went in the opposite direction for a reason. See, I don't trust vortexes unless you've stirred it up in advance. I don't know. Maybe if I had a vortex mixer, I'd trust it more. Are these still the paints that have been sitting around for forever, Balthorn? For a year or more? Separated very fast, yeah. I recently got a new bottle of lemon yellow from Reaper that I had to actually open up and stir with my brush before it would go into solution. But that's because lemon yellow is an unpopular color and tends not to sell very well. So that batch was probably pretty old and had been sitting for a while. So I do find that if a paint has been sitting for a long time, you're probably going to have to open the top. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but is Vortex one of those mixers that does this kind of motion? Yeah, exactly what Quindy says. You might need to open the nipple and stir. It vibrates? So does it do... But how does it vibrate? Like... Okay, so the problem that I'm running into here with the Vortex, just knowing how our paint is that if it's not actually moving the bottle enough, it's a bit of... But how is it holding the paint? Is it holding the paint like this? Like up and down? Like, is it like this? Or is it on the side? Because the thing is that, okay, we've got shakers and they're probably... The agitators are probably sunk into the paint at the bottom. So, Vortex inside the bottle. Oh, interesting. Tight circle. Yeah, I don't know. Because if stuff is trapped down here, which is usually the case, then like, I don't know that that's going to get it all. I don't know. Oh, okay. You can move it around. Repurpose medical mixers. Yeah, well, it ought to work. I don't know. I'd have to actually look at one, but I have no use for one, so I'm not going to buy one. I just use my hand. But I know some people can't because they've got, like, hand pain and arm pain, wrist pain. Yeah, I don't know. Like, all I can say is try to open the top, mix it with in old school, mix it with the brush butt, until you can see that the viscosity is good. And it shouldn't take that long. And then see if that's improved it. Because, I mean, I think I've showed you several times now on the stream that my paints, you know, the consistency that they are. And if your paint falls apart that easily, then there's something that's not getting in the mix. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But if it's not working, like, that's the thing. If you've got a paint like that, and it's not a super transparent color, there are colors that are very transparent in MSP, then I would open up the top, put a brush in, stir it around with a stir stick or whatever, and see if that improves it. And if it does, then you know your Vortex mixer isn't working on these paints. Though I couldn't see why it wouldn't, you know, but I don't, it's like I can't get an image in my head of, I need to probably watch a video. I'm going to look it up just so I can watch it later. Hobby paints. I'm sure somebody will give me, yes, somebody will give me a video that shows me how it's working. But I would never use it, Pendrake. Like, there's no reason to spend the money. Like, I shake my paints. Like, I'm this. I listen until I hear the agitator go. Then I know the agitator is actually working. Then I stop. I try to squeeze some out on the palette. If I see any clear fluid, I put the top on again, and I shake it again. And then it's good. Done. If I get a new bottle that's obviously sat around for a while, like that lemon yellow that I just acquired, where I can see that it's kind of like a watery consistency, no matter how much I shake it, that one I had to actually stick the butt in and stir around until I saw the consistency that it should be. And then I popped the top back on and shook it just a little extra so the agitator could work, and then it was fine. Like, I have no use for a machine I will never use. Certainly I can find something on the interweb that shows me exactly how it works for the purpose of answering questions. I've already picked out what David's getting me for my birthday. He's getting me more stuff for my weight room in the garage. He's going to get me a weight bench and some rings. Oh gosh, there's all sorts of stuff. And some exercise bands, and I think a new set of 35-pound plates for my barbell, because I need them for deadlifts. I'm all excited, actually. Handshaking always works better, in your opinion, Wendy? I wondered about that. Yeah, Zachariah. Yeah, I just don't know. Like, best thing I can do is honestly do the trial and error. I mean, if it's not working with the vortex mixer, stick a brush butt in it or a stirring stick and agitate it that way and see if you get a different result, right? All right. So you've really shadowed down this. I'm gonna bring this blue down a bit too. When I want to look at James Gurney's and see how much blue, because I think he muted his blue. Oh yeah, and I'm getting some dumbbells as well, because I've totally outgrown David's set of dumbbells, which only go up to like 15 pounds. And at CrossFit, I'm already using 20 and going into 25, so I want to get Mr. Gurney's example. All right, let's see. So as we go, we're in this stage, but now we're moving toward this stage. So as we go, he is taking a lot of the blue tones out. You see how we have a ton of blue in this one? And we have a lot less blue in this one. So he is using the brown to tune out the blue. So I think that's what I'm going to do here. Instead of covering it with the black, I'm going to actually grab my brown. And let's see how thin that is. Yeah, it's good. And I'm going to brown over some of that. The vortex mixer he got for paint is rubbish compared to the ones he used in the lab, for what it's worth. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I just wonder, because I hear people still have problems even though they use them, and I just don't have any knowledge of them. Now, I'm going to mostly put the brown guys, but I'm going to put it on the sides where the torch is still like kind of like, there's just a little curve of the shield separating here. Whereas over here, it's more like, I'm going to use more black because the torch is so much farther away. Yeah, I mean, I've no doubt they have value. I think it sounds like they're fine for paint that, you know, maybe you've been using and had to sit around for a little bit. I just wonder how good it is for paint that's really settled into the bottle. It sounds like it may not be as good for that. I see. You handshake still after you use the vortex. Hmm. All right, so there we've got some brown, some warmer shadows. Let me take a look more at where my warmer shadows going to go. So if I look at this, let's see here. There's our start. And we want anything that's going to get, yeah, okay. So I probably need to take this pouch and throw some brown on it. Because up here we can see where the reflected light is going to be more brown. Any place, and then if I look further down here, this is where I have to really stop and analyze. So yeah, now we're getting into here. This is more like what I did up here on the shield, because the light is just coming out, right? So we're introducing some of that warm brown. And then he actually brings back in the blue color. That he loses a bit back here, where it's all very subtle. This is almost like an evening sketch. It is supposed to be an evening sketch, but so he blues in more after he's browned out the foreground. It looks like he brings in a little bit more intense blue around here. And the real, yeah, okay. So everything else is like cool brown into black. There's warm browns right around the light source, but there's no warm browns anywhere else. Yeah, I don't know. I'll watch a video on vortex mixers after this, guys, and try to figure out why it might be having problems with some paints. And this is still unpainted up here. I missed that spot entirely. So put a little paint on it, and then put a little brown on it. Get it that warm shadow. Oh no, I would never put sealer's just going to make them more transparent. Okay, so when you add sealer, you're adding more base. So think about sealer. Anything you add to paint is going to water the paint down. Okay, it's gonna make there a smaller amount of paint in the mix than there was before, ratio wise, right? So we've got 100% paint in paint bottle that we haven't added anything to. 100% regular MSP. The minute you add anything else to that, you're lowering the amount of like pigment, and you're adding in additional whatever. So like in the case of sealers, they're pretty much just bases without pigment in them. They're bases with flattener or not flattener, depending on if they're gloss sealer or medium, or if they're a matte, or if they're in between. But they're essentially just adding more base, and then you're lowering your pigment count ratio-wise as far as your solution. So you're actually getting less coverage. Like, I add mediums when I want more transparency. The only way to get your paint to like add opacity is to add something that covers better. So that's why I say adding a bit of pure white, or I've talked about other pigments on my Patreon that you can add to certain colors to increase coverage very sneakily, right? Any pigment with more coverage that you can sneak into a mix, like a good one is red oxide, putting it into orange. Red oxide has very high coverage, and you can usually sneak a little bit into orange without sacrificing too much of the color. But like if I want this ultramarine to cover better, my only option is to take a little bit of white and mix it in. Because there's no other higher coverage pigment that'll work with this. Not off the top of my head. So maybe I add just a tiny bit of white in 4 drops. It lightens the color just a tiny bit, but it will still serve. And now it has much better coverage. You're not seeing as much streaking as it did before. I mean, if it froze, then it's dead. It's dead paint. It will cause that, though, because it'll push everything out of solution if it froze. And otherwise, like I said, I would actually stir them up manually and see if that makes a difference. If it doesn't make a difference, Val, then yeah, something's up with the paint. If it does make a difference, then they're just not fully in solution, even with the vortex. Yeah, something's wrong if it's thin out of the bottle. You're right, exactly. But yeah, like, if you look at these, I mean, that's thinned ultramarine, and that's straight up. But you can't really tell that I added white to this. But and yet it covers better. Even with that little bit of white, it will still cover better. All right, let's add in some, let's see, anything else that I want brown on. I think I'm going to use browns to get some of these shadows in here. You haven't told me if you actually like stirred them up or if you just did the vortex, Val. You haven't told me if you've done that experiment to see if it improves things. Does it? Or did you? I'd like to know if you actually tried it and if it just didn't help. Or if you never tried it. Because I keep giving you that advice, but if you've already tried it, then it's useless for me to give you that advice and I'll just shut up. Did both and it didn't help. Something is intrinsically wrong with the paint. The only thing I could think of, I mean, would they have been exposed to freezing? Because it's just so unlikely. And after only a year, you should still have usable paint. I wish you could make it to ReaperCon. I would give anything to like have a go at your paint in person. Because it's so hard to diagnose over stream. So I'm just adding in some brown in here, guys, to bury those blue tones that I had. Everything here that's a shadow should be a warm shadow because we're directly in this light. So using our brown, our russet brown, to warm up these lines and shadows. Yeah, that's a paint that's been sitting a long time. Hi, Kiki. Hi, Kiki. Oh, is it almost time, Kiki? Hold on, I have a dog here. This dog acts like she wants to come up on my lap. You want a lap? No? You don't want a lap? No, you just want pettings, huh? You just want to take Mama's attention? I know. Well, you know what? CJ's coming to walk you today. It's not me. Nope. Nope, the evil one is coming instead. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, yes. I get to, like, do other stuff while you get walked. Mm-hmm. Yep. But that means you're not going to get a walk right away. No, you're not. All right, Fuzzbutt. Go settle. We've still got about 10 minutes. Work. Bye, Crowley. Yep, floofy tail. Yep, there she is. Yes, the CJ, because whenever a stranger comes to the house, even though she knows him, she still barks at him. She acts like she's a ferocious attack dog, even though, like, he's watched her for so many days. But that's why we're having him walk her more often, so that she, like, doesn't forget him. Queenie the Roo is coming to walk Kiki. Nice, Laura. The other evil one, yeah. So yeah, we're just going to put in, and over here I think I want some brown as well. Because we got some reflected light here. It's hard. It's hard to figure out reflected warm light when you don't have like architecture, right? Like it's hard. It's easy for James Gurney to do it because he's just like, and here's my light source, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's all one mini. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not able to help more, Val. I've tried, but yeah, there's just only so much I can do without seeing the paint in person. If I see the paint in person, I instantly would know. All I would have to do is play with it a little bit. Throwing in some more of this black over here. They wouldn't have, I mean, it's very unlikely that they'd have frozen unless your house got to freezing temp, but I would think that you guys, if you turned off the heaters, you'd still have a like above freezing temps. Unless they were in like a basement or in like a garage or something where it was more exposed to the elements. I mean, for paint to freeze, it has to seriously freeze. So it has to be freezing temps. I doubt your house would get to that temperature. Unless, of course, you were gone on a trip or something and you turned off all the heat. Then maybe. But Ames, Iowa. Ames, Iowa for Gloom and Grave. Or you can, you know, ask Laura to, like, send her money and ask her to acquire them for you. That might be more than it's worth to her. You have to make it worth her while. I mean, yeah, if they're not going back in solution, I kind of feel like... But frozen paint is a specific, like, it's a very specific... Although, I mean, it fits, the MO fits, because you say you shake them up. And when you do shake a frozen paint, it seems at first to be okay. But then, once you have it in your palette, it will start to separate. And it won't hold solution. Well, actually freezing. So 32 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Like paint freezes because the water freezes. So the freezing temperature of water is the temperature that you need to ruin paint. I mean, I had my paint for a long time in the trunk of my car in winter in Wisconsin, but it never got, you know, to below freezing because it would like be in the garage, and so it would be like only in the 40s, right? Because the heat from the house would just keep it just a little bit above freezing, plus in the car itself. And I didn't have problems. But yeah, it has to actually freeze. Like usually, like when it's in a box coming from Reaper and it sits out on somebody's doorstep for a couple hours in freezing temps, that's when you get the problems. All right. Yeah, we've got that all blocked in. Except for, well, this is still a little blue. I think we're pretty good. Right, yeah, so I have no idea. Yeah, at this point I have no idea. but I guess, I mean, going back to your original comment, MSP should take, when you thin it, it should take 2 coats to cover, unless it is a very transparent color, in which case you might need 3. I mean, my stuff, when I base coat, isn't usually a very solid base coat. I hate to say it. Let's see, do I have something that I base coated? Unless it's a really, like, but even this is like a coat and then a touch up, like the green, right? And the yellow, you can see that you can still see a little bit of the base color of the sculpt through it. The orange even has a little bit, like, where it's a little not as strong, but I think I did two coats on the orange. So, like, if it covers in 2 coats with a little bit of thinning, then that's working as intended. And if it's still smooth, even though you have to put 2 coats on it, then that is working as intended, and it's unlikely that it's frozen. Frozen paint isn't terribly smooth. It's streaky. I'm going to add some more black occlusion shadows right under here. All right, I think we're good. I think I need to do something there. Probably this is going to be more warm. We'll figure it out. It's harder to do metal. I don't think I want all of that. There we go. Alrighty, I'll just put a little bit more brown around the edges here, and then we'll call it, guys. But yeah, I hope you appreciated all the paint today, and also my things earlier about, like, when you concentrate on just one skill or doing things just one way, you don't learn as effectively as if you switch things up. Adding in more brown shadow there. All right. I think we've got this tuned. I think that now it's time to start putting in colors. And this is where we're going to depart a little bit from James Gurney's example, because he's very much painting this. He's adding in some rose tones up here. Obviously, he's starting to add some color in, but in general, he keeps his colors that's very blue and brown for the majority of the piece. And then he adds in the rose tones at the end at the sunset. So the finished painting is there. So only at the end does he add in the rose up here and the rose down there to kind of balance and bring your attention fully up here. And then when your attention expands, it gets the details here, but the details here are less useful. So really, if we're doing this like James, then all of this lower area down here that's is just the same as this outer area here. So we're going to be doing it with very low detail and very low chroma. Even I don't work that thin anymore. I mean, I do a 1-to-1, but I do a lot more, like, I usually don't do like the full thinness unless I'm trying to layer up white with no lines. And even then I usually have to glaze. But it, like I said, it takes so long that I've just like, I've gone more to wet blending, layering, glazing, and then getting it that way. Because there's more than one way to arrive at a blend. Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, I mean that line is very thin, very fine. The thin to too thin line. It is very fine. And it's just experience, and like I would keep it a slightly on the thicker side. Learn it really well there, and then you'll get a little bit, maybe a little bit better feel. You can actually, I didn't do any of the face. I wanted to do some of the face. Oh well, we'll work more on it next time. But yeah. I mean, understand I have a really good like gut instinct for how much to thin my paint these days, just because I've got 20 years of practice behind me. So I'm very good at even dialing in even other paint lines. I'm good at dialing them in to be the consistency I need them to be, and that's just like experience, just working with the lines. I get a general like thinning ratio in my head, but these days I more use my eyes than any number of drops. Like, except for, like I said, if I'm trying to get white keyed in, the Reaper Pure White very much is a 2.5 to, it's like 5 drops, 2.5 to 1, or 1 to 2.5 ratio, but that's a weird one. And even then, it's just frustrating how long it takes to layer it up, so. I think thin paint is overrated at this point. Like, I still believe in it for glazing, but I just feel there are other ways to get a blend these days that I would use instead of the very thin paint. All right, guys. I think we'll call it there. I've got some stuff. Got a lot of stuff on my plate today to get done. But thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you're still enjoying this project. We at least got the back to the point where I feel like we can work it up. Tomorrow, we are back to the sofa. The sofa. Probably I want to bring the gold in tomorrow. Or I'll do the cream on the book, because it's bothering me that the cream on the dress is done, but the cream on the book is not. But yeah, that model's it's a good practice for doing a kind of a realistic light source. So yeah, I'm glad you guys are liking it. And then of course we've got our other later in the week. I think it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It'll be Friday this week that we work on our halfling, where we're also doing a lighting effect, but we're doing like that hard shadow there. And then we're gonna do the back of him, essentially figure him out. I think that'll be our Friday mini this week. Thanks much, everybody. Thank you, Quindy, for hanging out with us, and I'm glad Rhonda will be on. So make sure you all come back and give Rhonda lots of love. And yeah, thanks, everybody. I think this is going to be a good week. It'll be a good week. All right. Have a good one, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.